Hello, am I audible? Requesting confirmation. Thank you so much for the confirmation. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to chapter number 5, which is how to understand the placement of lords in different houses along with their aspect and a case study. So this is chapter number 5 of our Building Blocks of Jyotish series. If you want to know what we are talking about, you can, after this episode, check out chapters 1 to 4 to get a better understanding of the content that we will be discussing today. So आज हम अंडरस्टैंड करेंगे कि लॉर्ड क्या होता है, लॉर्डशिप्स क्या होता है एंड प्लैनेट्स के एस्पेक्ट्स क्या होते हैं. So before we deep dive into this, let's start with saying Om 3 times. आंखें बंद कीजिए. And today we also have a Bollywood special item in our presentation. तो बने रहिए end of the video तक. To end of the नहीं आपको तो बीच में पता चल जाएगा. But we have something Bollywood special for all of our audiences today. And this is one Bollywood celebrity who is been a superstar for decades. So before I start the presentation, आपको अगर guess करना है, if you want to guess who that celebrity is, please feel free to write it in the comment section. Right, now let's start off with our presentation. Can we have the presentation, please? Yes, can we have the next slide? Okay, so let's start with understanding lords in different houses. So as you know, there are 12 houses and we have the houses marked from 1 to 12. Now, what is a lord? A lord is the owner of a house. Now depending on what is the sign or कौन सी राशि first house में बैठी है वो उसका lord हो जाएगा. So for example, if Meen Rashi is in the first house, then who's the lord of Meen Rashi? It is Guru, and Guru will suppose is sitting in the 5th house. So you will say the lord of the first house is sitting in the 5th house. So it is so उसको ownership first house की है. That means Guru is responsible for your intellect, thought process, your physical health. And born in the house of in the 5th house. 5th house is the house of learning, your purva punya, your children. And that this is how through the 1st and the 5th house the planet Bruhaspati or Guru will give its effect. Right, now understand that a lord is always a planet, it is not a rashi, and it can be the owner of any house sitting in any house, whether it can be sitting in the house of its enemies or its friends. So how is it like? It's like I am an Indian, but I have settled in USA. But I'm originally an Indian, but I've migrated to USA. So my lordship would be Indian, and me staying somewhere else would be the house that I'm sitting in, which is USA. Right? Now, when a planet's in its own sign, it is called Swarashi or Mool Trikon. Now, depending on this combination, so for example, if Jupiter is the lord of the first house, he can sit in the 5th house, he can sit in the first house, he can sit in any of the 11 houses. So these creates different combination, right? And this is a process of understanding the same. Can we have the next slide, please? Right. Now, how do you calculate this? You first take the energy of the lord, that is the energy of the planet, which is going to the house. मतलब वो कौन से घर का स्वामी है, वो कौन से घर का लॉर्ड है, उसको एक एनर्जी लोगे, नंबर 1. नंबर 2, you will take into consideration the energy of the house the lord goes to. Okay, so I'm sorry that again. First will be the energy of the house it is the lord of. Second will be the energy of the house a planet goes to, and third will be the nature of the planet and the planet status, whether it is Uch, Neech, combust, debilitated or retrograde. Right? So in this example, we can see मान लो कर्क लग्न है, that means first house is rashi number 4, which is Cancer. Who is the lord of Cancer? The lord of Cancer is Moon, right? Now Moon, being the lord of the first house, goes and sits in the second house. So if कर्क राशि नंबर 1 हाउस में आएगी तो नंबर 2 में लियो आएगा. So what will you say? You will say the lord of the first house, which is Chandra, has gone into the second house and is sitting in Leo Rashi. Now, Leo Rashi is a fiery sign, Moon is a watery sign, and is it sitting in a friendly sign or enemy sign? It is sitting in friendly sign because Moon and Sun are friends. If you want more information, you can always check friends and enemies on Google. Here we will just be telling you hacks of how things actually work. Yeah. So how do you interpret this? इसको interpret कैसे करेंगे? So what is the first house? The first house stands for your physical body, your buddhi, your intellect, your sense of self. How do I think about myself? How does the world see me? That is the first house. Okay. And what is the second house? The second house is the house of my family. It is a house of my savings. It is a house of stability. It is a house of food. It is a house which sustains me, my sustainability. So when I'm born, the first aspect that sustains me is my family, right? So when your buddhi, when your intellect goes in the house of sustainability, what does that mean? It means that intellectually you value stability in life. You want to have a job that is going to give you regular income. You are not the kind of a person who's going to take risks. And it is also the house of family. So family and family wealth. So your intellect will always be about, okay, how do I run my family's business? How do I make sure that my family wealth is secured? How do I contribute to the family assets? How do I make life more comfortable for myself? Because it deals with our materialistic pleasures, right? And it is also the house of food. So when your first house, or your house of your intellect and body goes in the food, that means food is very important to you. You think about food. You like to have food as a part of your life, and it is an important part of your lifestyle, right? Now let's talk about the importance of the planet. So planet यहाँ पे Chandra है. Chandra rules our emotions. Now because it is the lord of the first house, it so you have two things now. You have the intellect from the first house. You have Chandra, which is your emotions. So your emotions and your intellect are both going in the house of family, house of wealth. So that means you are a person who's very attached to the family. That means uh, you physically value having a comfortable life around you. That means if you go outside, you are not going to go outside to just any restaurant. You want to go outside to a good restaurant which is going to fill you. You will be very particular about food habits. Now because it is in the sign of Leo, Leo is the rashi of loyalty. It is the rashi of kings. It is a rashi of leadership, right? So that means your food habits will be that of a king. आप खाना खाओगे, आपको रोटी खाओगे, आपको रोटी गरम गरम ही पसंद है. आप बासी खाना नहीं खाओगे. आप जब बोलोगे, बिकॉज सेकेंड हाउस इज स्पीच, आप बोलोगे तो आप राजा की तरह बोलोगे. और बिकॉज चंद्र इज नाउ एक्सप्रेसिंग थ्रू लियो, यू विल हैव अ स्वीट वॉइस, but at the same time a leadership voice, right? You will have a lot of liquid cash because wherever Chandra goes, it creates a liquidity. However, it can be fluctuating in the initial phase because Chandra is always fluctuating before it settles down. Your mother can actually give you wealth, right? And you will have a very motherly feeling towards your family, and you would like to take the lead in the family business. You would like to be a leader because now Chandra, that is your first house lord, is expressing through the rashi of leadership, correct? And also from the second house, Chandra looks at the eighth house. Now this is the point of aspect. So we can say that because Chandra is looking at the eighth house, you will want to build up your ancestral property and your family property for the long run. मतलब आप ऐसी प्रॉपर्टी बनाना चाहोगे जो आपके फैमिलियल जनरेशन को कंफर्ट में रखे. Now this is the point of aspect. We will talk about it later. Can we go to the next slide? Right. Now reverse example. If the second house goes to the first house, what happens is your family is now influencing the way you think. right? Your speech is coming into the house of your body. That what things you value, that means things that you contain, you think are vital for your sustenance, that is going into your intellect. So that means you can be a person who values fitness, physical well-being. You can be a person who values where he or she is staying. And because it is Chandra now expressing through the Rashi number 3, which is Mercury is Rashi, Gemini, you can be a very good comedian. You can value communication. You can uh, you can be the kind of a person who your family comes to give you wealth, to give you that lifestyle that you need. And it also means that your mom can influence your marriage, because now Chandra is sitting in the first house looking at the seventh house. It can mean two things: your mom can have an influence on your marriage, and you can be a very caring partner towards your spouse, because Chandra is the planet of care, motherly love. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now थोड़ा सा aspect पे बात कर लेते हैं. What is an aspect? See, an aspect is the same as aspiration. Whenever a planet is looking at a house directly by any aspect, it means that it has an aspiration towards the activities of the house. वो उस house के activities को अपने में लाना चाहता है. That is why it is looking at it. So for example, अगर मैंने class 9th clear किया, so my class, I will look forward to going in class 10th, right? I will look forward to clearing my boards. So that what do I mean? I'm aspiring to go towards a higher level. So the planet wants to upgrade itself. It is a way of for the planet to upgrade itself. So if Chandra is sitting in the first house looking at the seventh, what does that mean? It means that by caring towards my spouse is the seventh house, by caring towards my spouse, I get happiness. My sense of self is fulfilled. I am mentally and intellectually at peace. When my spouse is near me, I feel physically good. Right? This is how it means. So, fulfilling the properties of the first house by aspiring towards the property of the seventh house. Next slide, please. Right. Now, these are the planetary aspects. So, out of all the 9 planets, 8 planets have one aspect in common, which is the seventh aspect. Mars has 4, 7, 8, Jupiter 5, 7, 9, Saturn 3, 7, 10, and Rahu is 5, 7, 9. So, how will you count it? For example, अगर मुझे Jupiter के aspect count करना है, so I will start with the first house. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I will say Jupiter has 5th aspect on the 5th house. If I want to count Shani, so where is Shani sitting? Shani is sitting in the 9th house. And I want to see Shani's 3rd aspect. So 1, 2, 3. I will say Shani is aspecting the 11th house from its 3rd aspect. Right? So this is how we count aspects. 7th aspect is always the opposite. So I will say Shani is looking at the 3rd house from its 7th aspect. And 10th aspect will be, if 3rd house is a 7th aspect, then the 10th aspect will be 8, 9, 10. It will be on the 6th house. So I will say Shani is aspecting the 6th house from the 10th aspect. Shani 6वें घर को अपनी 10वीं दृष्टि से देख रहा है. Now Ketu has no aspects, and for the purpose of this case study, we will not be considering any aspects from Ketu. Right. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay. Now here are a few rules of the aspect. The count of the aspect is equal to the house signification. मतलब अगर शनि तीसरी दृष्टि से किसी घर या घर को देख रहा है, that means वो उस घर में efforts डालेगा. बोल रहा है वो शनि, आपको बोल रहा है कि आपको इस एरिया ऑफ लाइफ में efforts डालने पड़ेंगे. तो अगर 11th हाउस को देख रहा है शनि 3rd दृष्टि से, you have to make an efforts towards making friends. Okay. Second point is the house from which the planet sits an aspect. जिस घर से वो बैठ के देख रहा है, that becomes very important, because the planet wants to increase the significations of the house it is sitting in through the aspect. मतलब through looking at the aspect, I want to make the condition of the house that I am sitting in better. And another thing to consider is वो कौन से घर का लॉर्ड होके कौन से घर में बैठ के किस घर को एस्पेक्ट कर रहा है. So 3 things: lordship, the house it is sitting in, and the house it is aspecting. And finally, what relationship does the planet have with the house with its aspect? If Shani is looking at Mars, then they are enemies. Shani considers Mars या Mangal as enemies. So obviously it is going to do bad to that house and is going to do bad to that planet. If it is friend, it's going to do good. If it's looking at his own house, being the karak, it's going to do good. Right? So these are the rules of aspect and lordship. So now we will consider a case study of a famous Bollywood celebrity. Can we have the next slide, please? और वो सेलिब्रिटी है श्री अमिताभ बच्चन जी. Amitabh Bachchan needs no introduction. His voice is his introduction, right? He's popularly known as the angry young man of Bollywood. What is he known for? He's known for his personality, his height, his voice, being from a famous filmy family. He's also known for his ventures into politics, business, and being the show host, or the longest running show host of in television history. So what are we going to do today? What are we trying to prove? Next slide, please. तो हम ये समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि हम जिस तरीके से अमिताभ बच्चन की पर्सनालिटी को जानते हैं, the way we know Amitabh Bachchan, do planets also reflect the same? Is the same thing being reflected in his kundali? So what I know of Amitabh Bachchan, is it shown in his birth chart? Therefore, you know astrology is true, or astrology works. It's a retrospective analysis. But the truth is the planets never lie, and we are going to find out just why. तो क्या होने वाला है? Every house is going to be relating to a particular aspect of Amitabh ji for what he is famous for. तो एक एक घर अमिताभ बच्चन जी के पर्सनालिटी के बारे में बात करेगा, उनकी कोई फेमस मूवी या फेमस डायलॉग के बारे में बात करेगा, और हम देखेंगे कि ये उनके जीवन में अप्लाई होता है कि नहीं. तो बहुत मजा आने वाला है. So all you Amitabh Bachchan fans out there, be ready to take a trip down the memory lane as we recall some of the most memorable moments and work of Amitabh Bachchan ji's life. Yes, can we have the next slide, please? See the smile on my face? Yeah. But first, we will start with the overall kundali. So, ये Amitabh Bachchan ji की कुंडली है. So, it is an Aquarius kundali. So, if you remember your initial chapters, first you look at the kundali. So, when you have Aquarius on your lagna, that means your intellect. That means you are very ambitious. Aquarius rules our hopes, wishes, our dreams, our desires, our social circles, our ambitions. Right? It is an out of box thinking Rashi. So, from this thing, I can tell you that this person is going to be a public figure. Public is going to come to him. He is always going to be thinking about things of what he can do differently, right? And Aquarians are known to be hardworking, ambitious, and out of the box thinkers. That's why Amitabh Bachchan ji is always doing a different role. See, Rajesh Khanna ji का एक era था, देवानंद जी का एक era था, पर अमिताभ बच्चन जी एक ऐसे ब्रांड है जिनका कोई era नहीं है. He's timeless. नानी, दादी, मम्मी, आपकी बहन, next generation, everybody knows Amitabh Bachchan, because with every generation he's doing something new, he's doing something different. Why is he doing? Because Aquarius Lagna. Okay, now let's take a trip down the memory lane as we count down on Amitabh Bachchan ji's most memorable work and relate it to every house in astrology. Right, next slide please. Okay, फर्स्ट हाउस का डायलॉग है, हम जहाँ खड़े होते हैं लाइन वहीं से शुरू होती है. Now, as I told you before, first house is our physical body, how we look. Amitabh Bachchan ji is known for his height, and Aquarius rules the body. In this case, Aquarius also rules something which is unusual. So because Aquarius is sitting in the house of his body, he has an unusual body, not in vague sense, but something that makes him stand out. And because Ketu is sitting there, Ketu is something which is also very mysterious, which is emotionally detached. That is why you see, जब Amitabh Bachchan makes a public appearance, he's not very open with his emotions. He's very restrictive with his emotions. मतलब अपने आप को एक थाम के रखते हैं. That is Ketu expressing through the Rashi of Aquarius, which is why he is the way he is. Right? Now let us look at lordship. Ketu is the lord of in this kundali we can see Ketu is the lord of the 10th house sitting in the first house. 10th house is our career. So that means he's very career minded, because it is Aquarius Rashi Ketu express kar raha hai. So he will have sudden ideas about his career. How can I can do this thing different in my career. I can do that thing different in my career. I don't have to play a hero. I can play a villain. I can play a teacher. I can, आपने वो पा movie देखी है, where he is suffering from an unusual disease. I can play that character. So he's always thinking about his career is always on his mind, right? So this is how you understand that. And let's look at the aspect. तो ये दो भागों में बांटी है, planet sitting and aspect. What are the aspects falling on the first house? See, Rahu is looking at the first house. Now here Rahu is the Lord. He is the Lord of the first house and gone seventh from itself. Now seventh from itself means opposite seventh. So this is the Bhavat Bhavam concept. So when I go opposite to myself, I go in the other world. Now Rahu is sitting in the house of the seventh house, which is the house of public perception. So what is the Lagnesh saying? Lagnesh saying, I want the native to be perceived as someone like a king by the public, because Rahu is expressing through the Rashi of Leo. Leo is the leader. So Rahu says in the industry, in the marketplace for an actor becomes the film industry, right? And this is what happened to Amitabh Bachchan. He is perceived as the king, the Badshah of Bollywood. Why do we call him Badshah? Because film industry में Badshah इसलिए बोलते हैं क्योंकि Rahu is expressing through the Rashi of the leader, right? And it is looking at himself. So what is saying? My self-esteem, my self-worth, my sense of self comes from other people's perception of me as a king, and that gives me a sense of stability, of sense of self-worth. That is why Rahu is looking back at its own house. Next is Shani is looking at it from the fourth house. So Shani as Lagnesh sitting in fourth and 12th house casts the 10th aspect. So what does it mean? It means, see, where is Shani sitting? Shani is sitting in the fourth house. That means Janta, that means people at your home. 12th house is the people abroad. So that means and Shani is looking from the 10th aspect. So that means your work, which is your 10th aspect, will influence people from in your home, which is fourth house, and people abroad. Right? So your personality will be so big that people at your home and people abroad will be influenced by it. Right? Is there any other aspect that you can see? So here in the chart you can see that Mercury is Vakri, मतलब बुध वक्री है. तो बुध वक्री होके 7th house में बैठकर first house को देखते हैं. That means what? He will be known for his style of communication, but it will be a little after a delay. That is why Amitabh Bachchan ji in the initial phases of his career saw a lot of failure. Now speaking about communication and voice, आवाज के बारे में हम बात करें क्योंकि बुध has entered the scene. Let's move on to the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, second house का tagline है मेरी आवाज ही पहचान है. So how do we know अमिताभ बच्चन? अगर हम आंखें भी बंद करें उनकी आवाज भी सुन ले, हम अमिताभ बच्चन जी को पहचान सकते हैं. इतनी बुलंद आवाज. And do you know a fact that he was one actor who was rejected by a radio because of his heavy voice? And उनको reject किया गया था ऑल इंडिया रेडियो से क्योंकि उनकी आवाज बहुत ही भारी थी. पर अभी वो ही आवाज जाके उनका एक सोर्स ऑफ इनकम बन गई, उनकी ब्रांड वैल्यू बन गई है, राइट? एंड अगर आप सेकंड हाउस पे देखोगे तो मैक्सिमम प्लैनेट के एस्पेक्ट सेकंड हाउस पे गिर रहे हैं. सो व्हाट डज दैट मीन? व्हाट आर वी ट्राइंग टू से? We are trying to say that second house, which is a house of income and voice, will play a very big role in his life. So Surya is aspecting that house, right? So Surya means leadership, voice, and Surya is the lord of the 7th house, aspecting, sitting in 8th, aspecting the second house. That means he will be a leader at marketplace if he uses his voice, and will also if he uses his voice and he works on himself in isolation. That is why 7th lord, which is your own business, has gone into 8th. So that means he can have secret businesses as well, business relationship as well, right? And he can get property from his spouse. Next is Budh as 5th house lord and 8th house lord. So if you see Budh के पास 5th house और 8th house का lordship है, looking at the second house. That means his talent for a long time will be hidden, right? Budh उच्च के हैं और retro है. That means that is why he will face a failure in the initial phase of his life. That is why all India radio से वो reject किए गए. And because Mercury is looking at it, it will give him the power of speech. Mercury exalted after the retrogression period is over will give him the power of speech and will also make him very lucky in stocks and finances that will add to his family wealth. That is why Big B has invested in stocks and which has gotten return. He invested in Just Dial before it blew up, right? Mangal. Now Mangal is the 8th lord and the 3rd lord, which is gone in 8th house. Now this is not a very good combination for your career. It means you will have breaks in career, you will have struggles in career, uh, you will have faced a lot of dejection in your career, and your career will undergo a transformation, which is what happened. He tried to be so many things. First he was rejected from, before he became an actor, he was rejected from radio, rejected from film television institute. He was deemed as a failure as an actor, but Mangal ne aake transform kar diya. And because Mangal looks at second house, it gives him that aggression, that bulandi in his speech. because because उनकी आवाज जब अमिताभ जी बोलते हैं, feel like you feel like doing what he says, you feel like jumping into action. Right now Venus in 8th house does the work of transformation, because in 8th house Venus becomes the cause of your rebirth. So whatever death in the sense of whatever losses that you go through, after that you will rejuvenate or recover your losses. Now Venus has the lordship of 9th and the lordship of 4th. 4th is the house of your property, 9th is your fortune. So that means sitting in the 8th house, it means when the 4th lord of property and the 9th lord of fortune sits in the 8th house, it means after a transformative period of struggle, you will see rise in your 4th house properties and in your fortunes and fame, in your fortune, which is what happened. And because Venus is looking at the second house, it will give him the power of charming people. Venus is the planet of charm. And because it is 9th house, he will also be able to talk to people about higher philosophies and beliefs. Right. Guru. Now, Guru is also looking at the second house from the 10th aspect. Now, Guru is sitting in the 6th house, is exalted. So 6th house is a house of work. So that means by working on his skills, by working, actor के लिए skills क्या होगा? Working on his emotions, working on his gestures, working on his body language, which is an everyday routine. By working on his everyday routine, he will be able to add to his wealth and his brand value. Brand value is also seen from the second house. Right, next slide, please. Can we have the next slide, please? Can we have the next slide, please? Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, it seems we are stuck. I'll be back in a moment. Till then, you can take a break. Okay, looks like we are back. Yeah, third house. Third house is a house of action. It is a house of adventure. It is a house of doing something adventurous with your hands. And third house is the Karak of third house, or the significator of third house is Mars. And in his Kundali, Mars is also the ruler of the third house. Mars also represents anger and action, and that is why and Mars is also looking at the third house. Not is he just the owner of the third house, वो third house के लॉर्ड ही नहीं है, वो अपने घर को देखते भी हैं. एंड एंगर का कारक कौन है? मंगल. एक्शन का कारक कौन है? मंगल. आपको एक्शन स्टार कौन बनाता है? मंगल. That is why Amitabh Bachchan ji is known as the angry young man of Bollywood, because of Mangal. See how it all adds up. Planets never lie. I told you that. Okay. So Mangal, being the third house lord, is casting an 8th aspect on his own house. Now, what does that mean? It means that because you have third house is a house of effort, is a house of writing, you will be a very powerful writer. So whenever Amitabh Bachchan ji writes, or whenever he communicates from his social media account, because third house is also the house of media, whenever he communicates on his social media, people wait for his posts. Right? Whenever he posts something, it creates a sensation on the social media, in the social media world. And any obstacles which come his way, Mangal will remove it. That is why it is so easy for him to do, and so he looks so nice doing action scenes. And his most memorable movies are those जहाँ पे उनके action scenes बहुत थे. Right. Now, इस घर में what are the planets sitting in the third house? Shani is sitting by Vakratva. Now, what does that mean? His talent. Third house is the house of your talents, things that you do with your hands. If you write, if you type, if you are into building something, That is ruled by the third house. Okay. Now because Shani is sitting there, even your talent for acting is third house. Because Shani is sitting there, it shows a delay. So his talents came after delay. Shani जहाँ पे बैठते हैं वहाँ पे delay होता ही है. Correct. Now coming to aspects, Mangal we've discussed. Rahu we've discussed. No, we've not discussed. Sorry. Rahu looks at the third house from 10th aspect on the third house. So that means it will make him work to get his desires of being seen as a king in the film industry. So third house, Kam ka house, it is one of the houses of your desire. So you will always desire to be better and better and better. मतलब यहाँ पे राहु आपके desires बढ़ा रहा है to be better at your talent. So यहाँ पे शनि आपके ability को घटा रहा है. You see how contradictory, complex this is. And now Chandra is also looking at the third house. Now this is a very interesting combination. So Chandra being the lord of the sixth house, sitting in ninth, is looking at the third. So what does it mean? Sixth house is a house of diseases. What does it mean? Because Chandra has a lordship of sixth house and is looking at the house of communication, that is third house, it wants Amitabh Ji to talk about illnesses, diseases. It wants Amitabh Ji to influence the society in a positive way through his work, through media. Media can be social media or television, so that people are influenced to come out of their diseases or illnesses. That is why his campaign, Polio, Do Boon Zindagi Ke, was so successful. That is why we don't have any polio cases in India, because Amitabh Bachchan ji did such a great job in being able to influence the public. So any public campaign for health can be seen, any seva, and this is a social service, right? Do Boon Zindagi Ke was a social service. So any social service is streamed from the sixth. Because it is Chandra, he will be very sweet. He'll be perceived as Janta unko aise perceive karegi, oh, he's so caring when he talks about polio. And because Moon is sitting in the ninth house, what does it mean? Moon wants him to talk about his philosophies, his thoughts, and share his thoughts about eradicating the illnesses and diseases of the sixth house. Through how will he do it? By from the third house, that is social media. You see how it is all connected? Next slide, please. Right. Now इस slide का dialogue है fourth house. आज मेरे पास बिल्डिंग है, प्रॉपर्टी है, बैंक बैलेंस है, बंगला है, गाड़ी है. तुम्हारे पास क्या है भाई? Fourth house is exactly that. Fourth house is what? Fourth house is building, property, bank balance, bangla, gadi, anything that you own and hold dear. It is also the house of your inner private most feelings, which things which you keep private. See, your feelings can be private and your property can be private. Your bank balance is private information, right? You don't let anybody in. So it is your heart space. Now fourth house पर उनके heart space में कौन बैठे हैं? शनि. So that means he's not very expressive about his private emotions. Being such a big celebrity, or usually celebrities are not very expressive of the private emotions, right? Now Shani is sitting in the Rashi of Taurus. Taurus is the sign of stability. Taurus is the sign of comfort. So, and Shani is long term. So that means he will, whatever properties he earns, that means he will have a long term comfort. He will have long term materialistic gain. Any property bangla that he has made will last him for generation. Anything that he has earned in terms of goodwill of the people also will be lasting for generations, right? That is why the Janta, which is a fourth house, loves Amitabh Bachchan ji for a long time. That is why Amitabh Bachchan ji का नाम generations तक चला आ रहा है. राजेश खन्ना शायद किसी को पता होगा इस जनरेशन में, देवानंद बहुत ही कम लोगों को पता होगा, but अमिताभ बच्चन is a brand which people know because जनता loves you. Your fourth house में शनि जब बैठ जाता है, शनि is जनता, fourth house is the heart of the जनता. So Janta really loves you for your work you do. They have an emotional attachment to you because fourth house is emotions from the heart. See, Rahu in seventh house gives you the glamour, but Janta, so Shani in fourth house gives you the love of the people. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. So this is सारा ज़माना हसीनों का दीवाना, ज़माना कहे फिर क्यों, बुरा है दिल लगाना, बुरा है दिल लगाना. Fifth house is the house of romance, it's the house of romantic affairs. And back in the day, Amitabh Bachchan was known for his romantic affairs. Now see whether they were true or not, nobody knows. What were his relationship with Rekha, Parveen Babi, and that whole triangle, Jaya, Rekha, and Amitabh? Nobody knows. And you know why that is? Because the fifth house is in the eighth house. Fifth lord is in the eighth house. Fifth lord is Mercury sitting in the 8th house. So that means whatever romantic affairs you have go into the house of secrecy, 8th house. That shows that you can have a lot of romantic affairs, hidden romantic affairs which never come out in the media, right? Now any aspect, yes, Shani casts its third aspect on from third house. So what does that mean? Shani के आंखों में तो जहर है, and whatever Shani looks at, it delays. Fifth house is the house of your fame, it is the house of your entertainment, of your hobbies. तो थर्ड हाउस में बैठ के जब फिफ्थ हाउस को शनि देखते हैं, वो क्या बोल रहे हैं? आपके जीवन का, आपका जो टैलेंट है, जो आपको पैसे कमा के देगा, तो आपको जो फेम मिलेगा आपके जीवन में, वो आपको आपके करियर में लेट मिलेगा. दैट्स व्हाई he became a superstar later in his life after the movie Zanjeer released, right? And because fifth house is the house of children, it can also indicates issues with children, and we know that Abhishek Bachchan, his son is dyslexic. Next slide please. Right. Latpat Agnipat. Sixth house kya hai? Sixth house is Agnipat. It is a house of struggles. It is a house where you have to put in constant effort because you are always in a war zone with your competition. Now, war zone does not mean literal fighting. War zone can be a boardroom. War zone can be me as an actor sitting down with my agent saying, मुझे कोई न्यू फिल्म्स क्यों नहीं आ रही है? My competitor is doing film with Balki. My competitor is doing film with Sanjay Leela Bansali. मुझे कोई film क्यों नहीं मिल रही है? That is also a war zone. Yeah, whenever you go to work and you have to do your typing, you have to go through a daily job, daily routine. That is also a war zone. And it is the house of your enemies, your competition, same thing as enemies. So your Rin, Rog, Shatru. Rin means your. Can you go back, please, to the sixth house? Sixth house. Hitesh, go back to the sixth house. Yeah, thank you. Rin, Rog, Shatru, right? Now, because Jupiter, a planet like Jupiter is sitting in the sixth house, is exalted. That means he will have no enemies. Because Jupiter, wherever sits, by the principle of Sthan Hani Karo Jiva, it destroys the signification of that house. So enemies gaye, loans gaye. Though loans unko incur honge, but he will be able to pay them off with his own money, because second house, the house of wealth, is gone into his house of loans. But sixth house is also the house of liver, and Jupiter wherever sits destroys the significations of that house. और जब गुरु लिवर के जैसे जगह पर अपना इन्फ्लुएंस डालते हैं तो लिवर को खराब कर देते हैं. That is why Amitabh ji can only work with 25% of his liver. 75% of his liver is not working. So even if you have an exalted Jupiter, it can give you issues, right? And on top of that, Shani is looking at the sixth house from the third aspect, means Kasht. Third house is efforts. So that means you will have health efforts, health problems. You will have health problems. You have to put a lot of efforts in maintaining your health, because you will have illnesses which will go on for a long term. So this is how you can say उनको एक liver problem है. And also शनि जब third house पे देखते हैं, वो आपको long term health issues दे सकते हैं. Liver problem is a problem Amitabh ji is struggling with. And also recently he had a rib cage problem. Rib cage is your fourth house, is seen from your fourth house. So that is why recently he got a rib cage problem. Also, one more point I would like to bring here is when Ketu sits in your first house. First house rules your overall health. So, and Ketu is unusual diseases, unusual things जिसका कोई cause नहीं होता. That means suddenly कहीं आग लग गई and you're like, why? How did it start? Nobody knows. Ketu is a planet of mystery, right? So Amitabh ji has been diagnosed with myasthenia gravis, which is an unusual disease जिसका आज तक कोई कारण बता नहीं पाया. This disease has no cause. It causes your facial muscles to tighten. So that is caused by Ketu, because it is an unknown disease and whose cause is also unknown, right? But because Shani looks at and also one more thing, Shani looking at the sixth house can make you a very charitable, and Big B does a lot of donation. Next slide, please. Right, seventh house. Seventh house is the marketplace or the film industry. And who is Amitabh Bachchan in the film industry? He is the Shehenshah of Bollywood. Now, why is he the Shahenshah? Because the Rashi of Shahenshah Alam is sitting in the 7th house, which is Leo. And which planet is sitting in Leo? It is none other than Rahu. So, what does Rahu do? Rahu expands the properties of the house of where it is sitting, the properties of the Rashi where it is sitting. It creates this glamour, this smoke, this aura around you, which makes you look bigger than you actually are. See, Jupiter expands realistically, but Rahu just धुआं एक्सपैंड करता है. So for example, मिराज वाटर्स, आप कभी डेजर्ट में जा रहे हो तो आपने मिराज वाटर देखे होंगे, दूर से आपको लग रहा है पानी चमक रहा है, पास जाके देखो दैट इज एक्चुअली द सन्स रेज, वो एक्चुअल पानी नहीं है, दैट इज राहु, दैट मिराज, दैट डिल्यूजन इज राहु, राइट. बट बिकॉज इज इन द 7th हाउस, पीपल consider him as the Shahenshah of Bollywood, right? So his public perception in the market is a king, very glamorous. And 7th house is also the house of your spouse. When Rahu sits in the Rashi of Leo, which is the king's Rashi, it is a combination to be a politician. Spouse can have a dominating nature, and this presentation is not about Jayaji. Based on what you know of Jayaji, you can come to your own conclusions. Right. So are there any aspects on the 7th house? Okay, there are no aspects because we are not considering Ketu's aspect. Right. Now, where is the Lord of the 7th house sitting? The Lord of the 7th house is sitting in the 8th house. So whenever your 7th house Lord goes in the 8th house, it shows that you can gain from your spouse. It shows you can have extramarital affairs, 7th and 8th. And also you can be invested in, you can have business relationship, because apart from, see, 7th is the house of relationship. Relationship can be marriage, that relationship can be business. You can have business relationship from secret or hidden places. So for example, you have property abroad which you have not disclosed, which you don't want to bring out to the public. And we know that Amitabh Bachchan ji was a part of few scams which came into the news. I think later his name was cleared, but because of this placement, उनका नाम ऐसे scams के साथ जुड़ा गया था, right? And what are his business what are his investments, properties? We as public, we don't know, right? Next slide, please. And also this was his wife's second marriage. अगर आप उनकी wife की कुंडली बनाओगे तो आप देखोगे कि शनि रेट्रो दृष्टि से उनके, can we have the next slide, please? Hello, can we have the next slide? Okay, let me tell you about his wife's second marriage till then. Okay, so if you make 7th house the first house, that means the chart of your spouse, your wife, you can see that the 7th house, which is Rahu, has gone 7th from itself, right? So that means it is in the Marak of the Lagna. And also the second house for and also the second house, जहाँ पे Mercury बैठा है spouse के chart में, has gone into the first house and aspect in the 7th, right? So when second house goes into your first house and aspects the 7th, it is a combination for second marriage. That is why it was Jayaji's second marriage to Amitabh Bachchan. Yeah, can we have the next slide, please? Apologies for the interruption. तब तक आप ब्रेक लीजिए, कुछ ठंडा पीजिए, and don't go away, we'll get back. Okay. 8th house, मुकद्दर का सिकंदर. What is मुकद्दर का सिकंदर? What does it mean? मतलब you have come out through struggles, you have come out through obstacles, through challenges, through lots of dejection, lots of transformation. Your ego has died many times, you have failed many times, very badly, very miserably, and you have won. You have overcome all those challenges and you have become the Sikandar. You have conquered all these things. That is why most of his planets are in the 8th house. And if you see his career, Lord of his career is in the 8th house, the Lord of his marriage is in the 8th house, the Lord of his finances are in the 8th house. उनके खुद का भाग्य 8th house में है. So what does that mean? That you will achieve a great rise after a big fall. That is how you will transform yourself. And you will have to do this transformation on your own, in secret, not publicly. That is why when he had flops in the initial phases of his career, he sat with himself, he went in isolation. 8th house is ekant mein jana. He worked on his art, which was not difficult for him to do because Jupiter is in the sixth house. Sixth house is everyday work, everyday skills that you polish. He worked on himself, and then after Zanjeer, he became a massive hit. Right, now let's see what are the aspects. Aspects we have none, but let's see the planet sitting. Right, now first is Surya. Surya is the seventh house lord. We already know that. Now the house of public perception, sitting in eighth house. Spouse's second marriage we've already spoken about. So when the house, when the lord of public perception sits in the eighth house, it means your public perception will do better. You will do better if you uh, if you are into some kind of sadhana, if you're into some kind of spirituality, or if you are invested in long term assets, which Amitji is. Right, now Surya is also the karak of your father. When your father is sitting in the eighth house and in the Rashi of Virgo, it means your father could be into teaching or writing. All right, and he could be giving uh, public public service from hidden places because Surya is in the eighth house, and it is the lord of the ninth house. Ninth house is the house of father. So ninth house is also the house of higher philosophy. So that means your father could be expressing his higher philosophies, his higher truth to the public from a secret place. So his father is basically Venus here because Venus rules the ninth house. So that is why his father was a radio producer when he began his career, right? तो मतलब creative field में कुछ करेंगे, पर कुछ ऐसी चीज करेंगे which is very hidden, which is very behind the scenes, right? that is why पहले वो रेडियो प्रोड्यूसर थे, और जब जब करेक्ट दशा मिली उनको, शायद चंद्र की दशा या नाइन्थ हाउस की दशा लगी होगी, तब उनके फादर को फेम मिला होगा एज द पोएट दैट वी नो हिम. Poet is ruled by the planet Shukra or Venus. Venus here rules the house of the father, which is ninth house, right? And ninth house is also the house of publishing. So after Harivansh Rai ji's poems were published, he became famous as a poet. Before that, he was doing Shukra ka kaam, but from a background work, from a hidden place, which is a radio presenter, right? Budh in the eighth house means you will earn from finances, you will have secret holdings, you will love to do research about your character. Budh is originally the actor, Budh is Bairupia because he takes many forms. Because he is Vakri, your talent for communication or your talent as an actor will rise very late in life. Your talents and your stocks and your wealth will rise very late in life. But once they will rise, once your wealth and your acting rises, it will rise to an extent which is unstoppable, which endures for a long term, because Shani is protecting the house of your career. Right. Right, now what is Mangal? Mangal sitting here with his in Shatru Rashi, but Mangal in eighth house makes you very analytical, it makes you a very good researcher, it makes you an extremely good engineer, and it shows that his career will go through a transformation. And once he puts efforts in understanding himself, of being very aggressively pursuing the study of his character, aggressively researching his character, the better his career 10th house will be. So Mangal has to do a lot of struggle on himself, analytically, on a detailed way, work on himself before he sees a rise in his career, before he can see his effort from the third house be fruitful. Right. Now Venus in eighth house. Venus in eighth house, as we discussed, is rejuvenation, it is Sanjeevani, it is a rebirth. So he will have a positive transformation in himself after his marriage. So after his marriage to Jayaji, we saw a rise in his fame. We saw good movies being made where he started earning himself as the name, as a brand that he is, which endures with time. And Venus's property of recreation means that with every role that you do, you recreate yourself, and that is why Amitabh ji does different roles, and we love him. The public loves him for those roles. And because Venus is sitting with the third house of writing, Venus adds the quality of poise, the quality of charm in writing. That is why Amitabh ji writes also very well. Right. Next slide, please. Right. Ninth house. नाम है विजय दीनानाथ चौहान, माँ का नाम, बाप का नाम. He has famous parents, right? Abhi in the previous slide we have discussed how Harivansh Ji Bachchan became a poet because Shukra, who is a poet in the zodiac, rules the ninth house of father. But when we speak about the mother, you can see mother is the sixth house lord sitting in the ninth. That means you can be an activist who stands up for the rights of the people, who is into education because ninth house is higher learning, and that is what his mother was. उनकी माता जी तेजी बच्चन जी एक सोशल एक्टिविस्ट थी और एक टीचर थी. Why? Because sixth lord in the ninth house. Next slide, please. And because Shani is aspecting moon, his mother had chronic or long-term illnesses because of which she passed away. Right. 10th house is the house of your career. It is not just career, actually. It is a house of your fame. It is a house of public recognition. It is how the whole world views you. 5th house is small stage. 4th house is your घर वाले. आप घर वालों के सामने डांस करते हो. That is 4th house. Local. 5th house is probably town, and 10th house is nation. Right. So it is the biggest stage. 10th house is nation. Is how the public perceives you. Right. Now, because Shani is casting a retrospective aspect, that it indicates that you will see a rise in the significations of the 10th house, which is fame, which is career growth, very late in life. But because it is Shani, it will be long term. That is why Amitabh Bachchan ji has sustained for such a long time. Now, because the Rashi ruling here is 8. 8 is Scorpio. Scorpio is the house of desire. So he will be desired. People will desire to be famous like Amitabh Bachchan, right? Because people are now desiring to Scorpio in the 10th house means people are now desiring to be like you. And because Shani is looking at it from the 4th house, people also love to be like you. Correct? Genuinely from their heart. Yeah, did we miss? And can we go back, please, to the 10th house? I was just checking for aspects. Yeah, और कोई aspect है besides शनि? हाँ, Jupiter की aspect है. Now जब Jupiter का aspect है, that means this person will be in constant learning. As an actor, you have to learn. You have to study your subject. You have to study your character. And because Jupiter looks at it from its 5th aspect. 5th aspect is the aspect of learning, right? It's your graduation. It's your graduation. It's your learning. It is Purva Punya. It is Mantra Siddhi. It is your mind. So your mind has to be very sharp if you want to become an actor. You have to be emotionally very intelligent. Intelligence is Jupiter. Emotions is Kark Rashi. Now, because that is why Jupiter gets exalted in Kark Rashi, you will have the intelligence and the emotional intelligence to do well in your career, because Jupiter is looking at the house of your career from its Rashi of learning, which is the 5th Rashi. You see how everything is tying up? That is why Amitabh Bachchan ji's performance on stage is so flawless. We can emotionally connect to him. Next slide, please. Yeah, 11th house. 11th house is the house of your friends, and that is why iska tagline hai, ye dosti hum nahi todenge. Have you heard that song from the movie Sholay? Right? Right. So it is the house of your friends. Now, as an actor, you have to be into networking. Networking is your job. That is why the lord of your friend, the lord of your social circles is sitting in the house of your job, which is the 6th house. Your job is to network, not just with your fans, but also with politicians, also with people in the higher strata of society, the decision makers, the movers and shakers, the CEOs. Now, Amitabh Bachchan ji has access to all that, and because it is ruled by the ninth Rashi, sorry, which is Sagittarius, Dhanu Rashi. Dhanu Rashi is what? Higher philosophies, higher learning, spirituality, religion, house of temples, Guru's blessing. Now, speaking of house of temples, that we saw that during Ayodhya Ram Mandir inauguration, Amitabh Bachchan ji was one of the guests who was invited to inaugurate the temple. Why? Because he has connections in the field of politics and this field of spirituality. and he likes to have connections with spiritual people, which is why धनु राशि उनके 11th हाउस में है, इसलिए वो राम मंदिर के इनॉग्रेशन के लिए गए थे. Now 11th house is the house of desires. When Rahu from the 7th house looks at 11th house, it is saying that by increasing your by making friends in high places, you will increase your public perception. So when you go to Ayodhya Mandir for inauguration, your public perception will be better. Your income from your work will come from working in a public domain by having high net worth individual connections. Right? So income will come by marketing himself as the Badshah of Bollywood. So 7th house increase ho raha hai by through the aspect on the 11th house. Next aspect on the 11th house is Mangal. Now Mangal is casting as fourth aspect. Fourth aspect is equal to happiness, right? Because fourth house is the house of happiness, your inner peace. So Mangal says your happiness will come from by connecting with people who give you information, who give you some kind of knowledge that you can use. So when you study people as an actor, when you study people, when you understand their character, the better you can enact them on screen, right? Your wealth will come from hidden places and hidden investments. That is what Mars is telling you. And you will do a very good job in researching and studying people. That is what Mars is telling you. Next slide, please. 12th house. 12th house is the house of foreign countries. It's the house of दूसरा देश, दूसरे मुल्क. That is why डॉन का इंतजार 11 मुल्कों की पुलिस कर रही है. डॉन को पकड़ना मुश्किल ही नहीं, नामुमकिन है. 12th house is also the house of jails. You know that 12th house is the house of jail, but अमिताभ बच्चन जी तो डॉन है, वो तो जेल में जाएंगे नहीं, उनको पकड़ना मुश्किल ही नहीं, नामुमकिन है. Okay, so 12th house is the house of your subconscious mind, your imagination, your it is a house of basically losing everything. It is a house of moksha. It is a house of foreign countries, correct? And it is a house of traveling abroad. So is there any planet sitting here? No. But which Rashi is ruling? Shani. Shani's Rashi, Capricorn Rashi is ruling. Capricorn is the sign of ambition and hard work. Does Shani look at 12th house? Yes. Shani looks at the 12th house from the 4th house. So what does it mean? When Shani looks at its own house, it will protect its house. So it's a good thing. And because it is looking at the Rashi of work, which is Capricorn, you will get work abroad. Which is why Amitabh Bachchan ji is one brand who is very well known abroad, and he also got to work in a Hollywood film, which was starring Leonardo DiCaprio. The name Leonardo DiCaprio. If anybody knows the name, you can put it in the chat box. But I'm sure it was with Leonardo DiCaprio. So it means you will have steady source of work abroad. You will have a steady source of income abroad as well. आप as an Indian आप दुनिया में कहीं भी चले जाओ, लोग अमिताभ बच्चन को जानेंगे. आप इजिप्ट में जाओ, आप साउथ अफ्रीका में जाओ, अमिताभ बच्चन is a known brand. So that is how famous and loved he is, because from the 4th house of Janta's Pyar, Shani is looking at the house of foreign. Right? He's a valuable name abroad, and because it is retro, it will come later in life. Guru is looking directly at the 7th house. That means your client, your fan, your marketplace will also be abroad. That is why he has managed to get work abroad. He's managed to have good investments abroad. He's managed to have fame abroad, and he also travels abroad for work. Right? Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this was a presentation. और आज हम ये presentation wrap up करते हैं with a special astropathy quiz. कौन बनेगा astropathy quiz? So your question is, Shukra is the planet of fine arts. Shukra कला का ग्रह है. But in Amitabh Bachchan's chart, it is नीच. नीच मतलब weak. पर अमिताभ बच्चन के चार्ट में शुक्र कमजोर है या नीच का है, तो वो सुपरस्टार कैसे बने? ऑप्शन, आपके ऑप्शंस है. ऑप्शन ए शुक्र नीच भंग, ऑप्शन बी कंजंक्शन विद शुभ प्लैनेट एंड 5th हाउस लॉर्ड व्हिच इज अ त्रिकोण, ऑप्शन सी शुक्र इज स्वराशि इन D9, ऑप्शन डी, ऑल ऑफ द अबव। अगर आप इन ऑप्शन के बारे में कंफ्यूज्ड हैं कि नीच भंग क्या है, स्वराशि क्या है, तो आप अपना ऑप्शन ज्वाइन आवर एस्ट्रोमनी बैच यूज कर सकते हैं। सो ज्वाइन आवर एस्ट्रोमनी बैच विच इज ऑन राइट नाउ। उसमें आप एस्ट्रोलॉक टीचर्स को फोन लगा के, आलोक भैया को फोन लगा के पूछ सकते हैं कि किस वजह से अमिताभ बच्चन सुपरस्टार है डिस्पाइट हैविंग अ शुक्र नीच का। Okay, so please utilize your options of joining Astromoney batch and know the answer of what makes a superstar a superstar. Till then, Shubh Ratri, Shabha Khair. Shubh Ratri to nahi. Have a nice day. Take care of yourselves and Jai Gurudev.